being John Malkovich.
That's a great movie, though.
Yeah, I liked it. It was weird.
I love John Malkovich.
So you just like really weird movies. So
I do like weird movies.
where Will Ferrell was an elf, but he swapped faces with like Danny DeVito, and they became a homosexual couple. And then later on, he like broke up, and they had to switch faces back because.
Wait, is this a real movie?
No, because
okay.
Will Ferrell's face on Danny DeVito's body actually fell in love with that chick who's in all the Tim Burton movies.
Helena Bonham Carter.
Yeah. But it actually turns out that she was swapped faces with Johnny Depp. So.
Wake up, everybody. Today is July 30th, and we are Never Free to Play, a podcast where we talk about all the video games we wish we were playing. I'm one of your hosts, Karch Palashti, joined by my co-host, Jason Wright. If you decide you like us and want to witness more of our quarter-life crisis project that we will regret into our 50s, you can find us at neverfreetoplay.com, patreon.com/neverfreetoplay, or on all the other social media where we are Never Free to Play. If you have questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, feedback, please send it to us at neverfreetoplay@gmail.com. Jason, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well, man. I've been thinking a lot about ways that we can maybe garner more of an audience. And I feel like, well, the solution, potentially, because I found something else in the social media sphere that's gotten a lot of traction, and I think if we added this to our show, we could get some traction. TikTok dances.
Love it.
Everybody's doing TikTok dances.
What's our dance look like?
Well, see, that's the thing. I don't know a lot about TikTok, but I have a sister in college, so I know like this much about TikTok. And I've never actually seen it, but I think everybody does the same dances, and then you have to learn those dances with those same moves, but I don't know how to do it. Anytime I've ever seen someone do it, it looks like they're looking at a screen that's like instructing them on how to do it. So I don't know. I feel like we could figure it out. We're smart guys.
Tickety tockety, walkety wickety.
Yeah.
How much do I have to? How can I keep my clothes on?
Yeah. I would prefer you wear fewer clothes than you normally do, but you can keep them on because it's a family oriented show.
Taking my shirt off right now.
I can't see you, so I guess I'll find out in post.
The farmer's tan is real, though. It's disgusting.
Yeah, I assume everybody who lives in Florida just gets a farmer's tan just from going outside.
Yep, my sandal tan is next level, though.
Is it? Mm-hmm. Was it just from checking the mail just because that's how bad it is to live in Florida?
No, it's just because I wear sandals anytime I have a chance to wear footwear.
Gotcha. Which isn't that often in the pandemic, really.
I mean, I walk my dog twice a day still.
Oh, well, see, my dog doesn't go on a walk. He's terrified of walks.
I can't even with him. Can't.
Me neither, dude. And I can't tell you how many times we've tried, and it just feels like abuse to continue to make him try. I mean, he's 4, and he's terrified. He poops like a horse, just like walking, Mm-hmm. Like he'll be walking, he'll just poop. That's how scared he gets. He just shakes, and he gets tremors. His whole body shakes, and he drags his feet in so hard that he cuts up his paw pads on the cement.
Poor Toby.
He's just he's a crazy dog, and he
is like the most broken acting dog without actually being there's nothing wrong with him. And yet,
I know
there's some strange oddities about him. And
that's the thing. And like I said, we've had him since we went to the breeder every single weekend for 9 weeks.
Coddled him.
From the time he was a puppy to the time we picked him up, we know nothing bad has ever happened to him in his entire life. But he's terrified of, and I don't know what it is. But yeah, I mean, he does okay on walking trails if there aren't cars around. We're thinking the big thing is he hates cars.
That makes sense.
So
they're scary.
I don't know. Cars are scary.
Super scary.
You know what I've also been thinking a lot about?
Tell me.
Everybody loves coffee. Everybody loves the smell of coffee.
I love it the most.
Sometimes it's hard to distinguish the smell of coffee from the smell of poop.
I disagree.
And yet we still like the smell of coffee.
It's because it doesn't smell like poop.
It does a little bit smell like poop.
Maybe yours does.
Like it smells like not poop, but it smells like a flatulent, you know?
A flatulent.
Flatulent.
Flatulente. I don't know. When Rachel was pregnant, she hated everything about coffee. She doesn't drink it, but she doesn't mind it in general. But like while she was pregnant, it smelled exactly like someone took a dump in the kitchen and then set it on fire.
Yeah.
Of course,
I'm with pregnant Rachel.
That was when I had just started drinking coffee, and I didn't know what I was doing or what was good yet. So it's possible I was just drinking bad coffee that smelled like poop.
I don't know, man, because like every once in a while when I do a K-Cup, which is like perfectly crafted, I'll go over to get it. Like I'll walk out of the room and I'll come back and it'll smell like someone
perfectly crafted
ripped one over there.
Okay. Yeah. They're tasty, but you sacrifice for the convenience.
What do you sacrifice, Karch?
The quality.
How?
It's not perfect. It's okay.
It's not as good as freshly ground, but it is every bit as good as ground coffee.
Well, right. But I do freshly ground. I have beans.
Okay, well, I do too. That I'll do on the weekends, but I don't got time for that during the week.
Make time. Make time.
I ain't waking up more than 20 minutes before I walk out the door.
I hear that. All right. Well, since we're done arguing, let's get into some housekeeping. Like, sub, follow, share, tweet, email. Please engage. We're lonely.
Engage.
We don't do a lot during the week. We're probably going to be fired from our jobs any day now, and we're going to need this. So we're going to need you all to step it up, please.
Yeah, and by that we just mean you don't have to pay for anything. Just like us. Just subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Twitter. Those are where we're most active. We are never free to play on both those platforms. You can find us. Subscribe to the podcast on any podcast service. We're on pretty much all of them. So, yeah. We're even on Overcast. Didn't even put us on Overcast, but we're on Overcast.
Sweet.
We got NFTP Debates, episode 5. It is live. We are debating, do console generations matter? And actually, at some point during this episode, Karch is going to tell us who won that debate. So if you don't want to be spoiled, pause it here, go find that video, watch it, and then come back.
It's very short.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty short. It's way shorter than this. This is our long form podcast, but these things are 15, 20 minutes.
Not even.
Tops.
Yeah. Can I say who won now?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Wasn't you.
Yeah, I think it could have been a little tighter. I think what we really should have done is debated Sony's strategy versus Microsoft's strategy, because that's really, I think, the crux of what it was.
Which is kind of what you did, and then I still side with Greg.
Okay, that's fine. So you prefer Sony's approach. I prefer Microsoft's approach still.
I do, because I have to assume that Sony's approach is what's getting them better titles. I mean, it could just be, the blind luck of the draw in this existence of life, like it's just how it happened to roll and turn out. But like Microsoft is a consumer friendly thing, but that doesn't mean a lot in a world and economy where that phrase doesn't actually mean what we say. Nothing's really consumer friendly. We're all still paying out the nose for stuff, and we're hooked in and we're slaves to it. So I'd rather just be Sony's slave.
Okay, that's fair. We don't have to rehash it all here.
No, of course not.
I'm going to have you on NFTP debates at some point.
Coke and Pepsi. Woo! All right, no shout-outs this week. There was a correction that I thought of. It was a dumb one. It was like a joke correction, but I can't even remember what it was, so we'll skip through that.
Good. No corrections music.
And we will move on to the news. Brief news items today. We're going to run through these real quick. First foremost, Cuphead is coming to PS4. We thought it wasn't going to be possible, but then it came to Switch. And then we said, okay, that's enough. We're done. And now it's coming to PS4. Do you care, Jason?
No, I don't care, because I see what you wrote here. You said nobody likes it. I actually did like this game. I liked this game a lot. It's just that I got to like the second section of it, and I got to a certain point where I couldn't get good enough no matter how hard I tried. But I put probably a good 5 to 10 hours into it, all said, and I was on Steam and I really enjoyed it. And you and I talked about this earlier this week, but to me, like, PlayStation's never going to be my indie machine.
Yeah.
That's always going to either be Steam or the Switch. And so this doesn't really do anything for me, but I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who have been waiting to play this and they don't have a PC or a Switch. So I'm glad more people will get to enjoy it. I will say this, just thinking about the controls, I'm trying to remember if I played this with a joystick or a D-pad. And I don't know that I don't personally know that either the Nintendo Switch, not the Pro Controller, but the Joy-Cons, I don't think that left side of that is robust enough for this game, nor do I really like the configuration of Sony's controllers for this type of game. It just doesn't feel right playing something so retro on such a modern controller. So I'm just throwing it out there. I know there's other controller options, but for me, Yeah,
a lot of people don't like the D-pad on the PS4. I've never had to use it extensively. There's never been a real like test of faith with it. Like it's usually just like press left for this option. And so that's all I have to do with it.
Yeah, I've downloaded just for funsies. I think Super Meat Boy was a PS Plus game. So I downloaded that and I was like, it doesn't feel right. I don't know what about it is. But it just didn't feel right. So,
yep. All right. So go get it if you haven't got it already. Cuphead for PS4, and they've got some more content coming too. I think that was part of this announcement, as these things usually do. Like, this is like a pretty classic marketing move. It's like, it's coming here, and we've got this, pow, the 1-2 kind of thing. So people who can't benefit from it coming to a new system that they already own can still be excited. And then people, and they usually sell it bundled together and all that stuff. So, still one of the coolest looking games. It's a shame I just didn't like it. So
yeah, and just to consumer beware out there, I think Tim Geddes probably said it best and he actually really liked this game. I think he did the equivalent of platinum on Xbox for this game, but he said, make sure you want a game like Cuphead and not a game that looks like Cuphead.
Sure.
And I thought that was like, yeah, totally agree with that.
All right. Next up, we have Phil Spencer, friend of the show, Philly Spence, hinting at an August event for Xbox. Jason, tell us all about it.
So he was on a podcast recently, and I'll look here and see what podcast it was specifically. Justine. Not sure what that's. I guess it's a podcast / YouTube channel. And he made the comment with regard to backwards compatibility. I'm encouraged to be able to talk more about it. Should be August. I think August will have more to say on that. And that's a quote from Philip Spencer. So, we're kind of reading into things here by saying that, but there's going to be, even if there's not a full event, we should be getting more information on the next generation Xbox in August, I would say. So that's kind of, people are hyped and hoping for an event, and maybe that, because they did allude to that in their first party showcase this past month. They alluded to, hey, we'll have more to say soon. So it would kind of add up that if he's referencing, we'll have more to say in August, that maybe that's the next event thing that he's talking about. But maybe that's just where we get a little more, like a blog post, details on some things. Maybe we get price and release date. Who knows?
Yeah, it's anybody's guess at this point, because with still so much unknown, at least from the business side of things. And like, you also don't even know, like, now it's assumed Halo is coming as a launch title. Like, it'll be available day one.
Right.
But aside from that kind of like assumption, did they say any of these would be available like as a launch title in last week's event?
I'd have to go back and look, because I know I
But
noted those.
What's your gut, though? Would you say yes or no, most likely?
I would say yes, at least a couple of them were going to be launch.
But do you think they said that?
I think they said that a lot of them would be holiday 2020.
Okay, that's my, I guess. See, that's different from the PS5 event was pretty explicit on at least the 2 or 3 titles that said they would be available for launch, or at least on the afterwards portions where like they would talk to a couple marketing and PR people, and you would get like those little really short headlines that say like stuff like Jet the Far Shore is coming along with Miles Morales.
Right. Yeah.
Godfall might be one of them too. I can't remember. I know it's obviously going to be beyond the PS5, but it's, I don't know, maybe it could be price. It could be nothing. They did say like, oh yeah, we're going to have lots more information throughout the next coming months. August is the next month in the coming months. Yeah. So it's very possible. And at some point they have to go over multiplayer for Halo before they get into it, which I'm very curious as how they're going to handle. I'm sure they'll have lots of different modes and stuff, but we'll see.
So I'm looking back here. Mm-hmm. Several titles allude to 2020. 3 specifically say holiday 2020. Mm-hmm. 3 notes here. We have obviously Halo, Tetris Effect Connected, and then so one of the people said, and I have this as a quote, lineup of over 100 titles this holiday season, which I'm sure alludes to like, you know, they're playing marketing games with cross-gen compatibility and whatever, you know. So I'm sure they're not going to have 100 launch games, but there will be over 100 titles playable on the Xbox Series X or whatever. So, yeah, that just kind of that confirms what you were just thinking.
Right. Okay. All right. Don't let us down, Philly. Next, we had some Avengers news. They had another War Table, which is their little, you know, kind of showcase situation. I didn't watch it. I'm pretty sure you didn't watch it either.
Negative.
I didn't hear a lot of buzz about it, negative or positive. I think it was just anybody who's interested has kind of latched on at this point, and I think anybody else is either just like me personally, I'm just going to sidestep this game. I'm not going to play it. I'm not getting it. I don't have the time or the interest. I think there's a lot of people probably just still waiting to see reviews. And then, of course, finally you have the people who are like, woo, go Avengers, I'm going to get it.
Sure. Yeah, no, I thought the interesting news from this little event was, and again, I didn't watch it, so I didn't see any gameplay or anything like that. But there is going to be an open beta.
Yeah, I saw that. I clicked on a link to see how it was to like sign up for, or maybe the closed beta. I don't remember which one I clicked on. But then when the page was like longer than 4 scrolls, so I immediately closed it.
Yeah, I don't know how you sign up for it exactly, but I do know that they're doing 2 separate betas. They're doing a pre-order beta, and then they're separately doing an open beta. So I would imagine that open beta will be more like a demo where you can just go in and download it.
Right.
And the pre-order beta, obviously, you have to pre-order it. So what you've got is you have the PlayStation pre-order beta starting August 7th to August 9th. Then what you have is the Xbox and PC pre-order beta, plus the PlayStation Open Beta, August 14th through August 16th. And then finally you have, I guess, all platforms Open Beta, August 21st through the 23rd. So even though I'm not super interested in this game, I think I will check out this beta, because why not? It's free, right? And
we've talked about this. Why not? Because if you're not going to play it, what's the point? Like, are you going to play this game? Like, how? Like,
well,
do you think it's going to? You think it's going to change your mind? Like without the beta, are you going to play it right now?
No.
Okay, so how good is this beta going to have to be to like totally change your mind?
Pretty good, but it could. I mean, I don't know. Like, I just want to see. Like, what else am I doing with my life? And I do think that it is kind of a testament to Square's confidence in the game that they would even do this, because you know how much kind of, I don't want to say negativity, but skepticism there has been regarding this game, especially after the delays and whatnot. And then like everyone being like, well, why is it a live services game? Why isn't it this? Why isn't it that? How come they aren't using the, MCU character models? So there's been a lot of criticism and skepticism around this game. So for them to come out and be like, well, here's an open beta, see for yourself. Like, I do think that speaks to somewhat to their confidence of the game, or at least maybe it gives them some opportunity to make some tweaks. And we saw this with Destiny. I mean, they thought they were doing something great by getting, what was his name, to do the robot voice?
Peter Dinklage.
Yeah. And then they ended up having to basically re-record all of that because they made him sound too weird or whatever it was.
Well, but that was well after the launch of the game.
Sure, but they can at least get feedback and start working on it. Is my point.
Right. And you're not wrong. I would say it's less confidence and more lack of fear. Like Anthem didn't have such a robust or early beta because they were afraid. They had some like early release kind of like week prior thing, and then that was a total disaster as a result.
And that was not open. That was pretty much only for like influencers and stuff,
exactly.
Right?
It wasn't. Yeah, I think you're right. I don't even think it wasn't open. But there's not enough time to make major tweaks. But this game, they know that this game is going to do well on its IP. It's just not going to bomb like Anthem did, even if it's like Anthem levels of boring and janky. And they have the time to take care of it, and they're just not going to botch it like Anthem. They're not going to botch it like Anthem, like because they're going to they don't have the luxury. EA can kind of do whatever they want. Maybe not BioWare, but EA can do whatever they want. But
Square game.
That's what I'm comparing them. Yeah, but
yeah.
Square can't necessarily do whatever they want, especially with something like this tied to, because Anthem, of course, is owned by BioWare and EA, whereas Marvel and Avengers, etc., is a Disney property. So you got to look real good.
If we know one thing about Disney video games, and I'm speaking to specifically the Star Wars, it's that they can tolerate some level of failure.
Yeah.
but I see what you're saying from Square's standpoint. It's like they want to do this right. So,
yeah. I mean, I'm not saying I won't try it, but it's just going to be like there will be no priority given to it whatsoever.
Well, I just figure you and I do it on like a random whatever Sunday, especially if the multiplayer is active. You and I just check it out. We just jump in, we check it out just to see what it's all about, and then if we hate it, we hate it. But maybe we love it. Maybe it's what we thought DC Universe Online was going to be.
Right. No, I knew what that was. That was your fault for not knowing what MMOs are.
Well, yeah, okay.
It's interesting, the huge gap in time between. So PlayStation used its clout and money to get the first pre-order beta for those 2 days, that small weekend on the 7th. And then like the other betas will roll through. It's finally with the full open beta starting on the 21st. So that's 2 whole weeks afterward.
Do you think you're going to have to be a PlayStation Plus member to get into that open beta on August 14th? Or do you think it's going to be open to...
Hard to say, because as far as I'm aware, free on any of the console platforms where you have to pay for online, there's an asterisk next to free-to-play games, and a beta is...
Well, this is not a free-to-play game, but it's a demo.
That's where I'm saying it's hard to say. I don't know.
Yeah.
I would say no. I don't think you would need a PlayStation Plus thing to... do the beta, at least not the open beta. Maybe for some reason you might need it if you have the PlayStation pre-order, but that would be really weird. So
yeah,
I need to get rid of that. We don't talk about that enough, but that's so stupid.
What, PlayStation Plus?
Needing to pay for it to get online.
Oh yeah. You mean for multiplayer?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a conversation for another day.
It certainly is.
I don't know that should be our topic for NFTP debates.
Oh, yes. I could do that one.
Okay.
All right. What's our last news item, Jason?
Okay, this is one I threw in there. So this article comes from IGN, and here's a quote from it. It says, 2K has announced a partnership with One Team Partners and the National Football League Players Association to include, quote, football's most prominent star players in future NFL 2K games. So basically what this indicates is that it may be possible, and 2K has alluded to working on a non-simulation football game, and they may be able to obtain licenses for NFL players' likenesses to use in said game. And I have another quote from that article. It says, quote, EA penned a deal with NFL in December of 2004 to make Madden the only series able to use NFL teams and players' names. But this partnership suggests that officially licensed players will also feature in NFL 2K games going forward. So I am super interested in this. I'm hoping that it's something akin to NFL Street or NFL Blitz, but I guess we'll just have to see. I know that they tried to continue the NFL Blitz license using like totally made up teams and stuff, and it just, I don't think it sold that well. And we're talking like mid 2000s. And I don't think 2K was the developer for that, but yeah, I'm really stoked about this because I personally don't love Madden. I just think it's too much of a simulation for me, and I never feel like I'm actually controlling the characters or I have any real outcome. And maybe that's just because I suck at the game.
Probably.
But something more arcadey, something not so much of a simulation, like I could totally get on board with. And so I'm personally pretty stoked for this, but we will see how it all shakes out. I know you're not a huge sports game fan, and neither am I, but I have a soft spot for NFL Blitz. But what do you think about this?
Well, you're right. I don't have any connection to football anymore, or sports in general, especially sports games. But I'll tell you what I do love to talk about, and that's licensing deals and who has rights to what. And I think it's totally stupid that it's possible to just pin down the rights to people because it's owned by another company who then trades with another company, and it boggles my mind. And then why would you limit yourself to dealing with only one company? Like, obviously now, finally, it seems that the NFL is reaching out, much like MLB or whoever's in charge of the gaming rights are finally making the show, which has been a long time PlayStation exclusive, Sony exclusive. They're going to make them put it on other platforms because, again, it's like, we'd like more money, please. And if you want to keep this license, you better put it other places. And it's the same kind of concept. And it's just like, we talked about this a bit, like, when was it? Early last year? Whatever they were talking about, California making strides to try to give college players more autonomy over their own, humanity when it comes to like using their images for things. And I just think that it should be illegal to ever take anybody's images rights away. Like, that's me.
I totally agree. And you see these things out there too of like, I cannot remember what college it was. I want to say Iowa, who has a very, very prestigious wrestling program. Mm-hmm. So you had this NCAA wrestler who started making money off of YouTube by doing like hip hop music or something like that, and just got a ton of views and was getting some ad revenue. They essentially stopped him from being able to do that because they were like, you cannot do that with your likeness. It had nothing to do with sports. And wrestling's not like it's not like Cam Newton was making hip hop beats on YouTube, right? So it's just weird stuff like that. That really bugs me. And I know that we're kind of straying a little bit from this conversation, but yeah, I'm interested to see how this pans out, and I'm happy that the NFL is actually starting to be open to other partnerships, and hopefully that translates over into the media as well, and that they end their relationship with AT&T and having Sunday Ticket only be able to be provided by AT&T, and that way we can maybe get some sort of like NFL streaming service where you could just pay a subscription fee like every other thing on the planet and watch all the games.
Again, so stupid. Why are you dealing with one company? Like, how much money are they giving you, and how much money? Like, I guess I just don't know how it works. Maybe you get no money unless you make a deal. Like, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Wait, you mean from the player perspective?
No. In this term, talking to like the NFL, why does the NFL simply be like, if you want us, you have to pay this much, and you will not be exclusive, and this is how it is. And if you want that sweet ad revenue, then like I don't get it. I don't get it.
Well, yeah, and it was so. I mean, that original deal was signed in 2004. I just don't think
16 years ago.
Exactly. Well, I don't think they had the foresight. Much you know what I mean? Much like in digital distribution of these games, and why games like Tony Hawk are so hard to remake. Well, they didn't think about the digital distribution and the remakes and perpetuity and what does that mean for the music licensing. I just think these companies didn't have the foresight to understand what the impact of digital marketplace and streaming and all these things meant at that time. And so they made, or how big video games were. And so they made these deals with their probably super, I mean, this is going to sound ageist, and I'm not trying to come off like that, but like probably baby boomers were the execs that signed this deal. And so you're talking 2004.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. And so like, how are they supposed to know how big all of this is and how much money they can make from it. And you know what I mean?
It's a very good point. It's not one I consider often because, like, to me, even back then, as dopey little freshman in high school Karch, like, video games were never going anywhere. Like there was never a doubt in my mind that, like, this wasn't the future. Obviously, things change and evolve, but, like, to think that this wouldn't exist in some form of popular, if not increasing in popularity, which never would have crossed my mind, and I was, in high school. So,
yeah. So I don't know. I guess we'll see. But let's move on, Karch. What do you wish you were playing?
I wish I was playing video games, Jason. I want to play all the video games. I want
all of them
to have. I got 2 hands. I want 2 controllers. I'll play something on one screen. I'll play something on the other screen.
You could probably hook that up with the Joy-Cons.
I probably could, exactly. I want to play Ghost of Tsushima because I've been playing it, and I want to play it more. I want to play World of Final Fantasy because it was half off, and I bought it for $20 on the Switch. Who knows when I'm going to get to that? I don't like it. I want to play Bug Fables. I want to play Paper Mario because, I don't care. I want to play Paper Mario. I want to play everything because I'm disgusting.
You are disgusting. Why did you buy World of Final Fantasy? Because it really sounds like a total knockoff of World of Warcraft. And they were just like, oh, we'll do that same thing, but we'll just call it World of Final Fantasy.
That's the name is World of It's because it's a compilation. Not compilation is not the right word. It's a side series game that features several characters, like, from several Final Fantasy titles. It's like this alternate reality where they all kind of get summoned in. There's another series that it's like a fighting series. Their take on a fighting series anyway called Dissidia, in which you play the main characters from the main games and they fight each other and they fight the villains and stuff. This is you play an original cast of characters, or rather just 2, and it's got a Pokemon bend to it. So, like, you fight cute chibi versions of monsters from Final Fantasy games and you capture them, and then now they're on your team. And you go through different worlds from Final Fantasy, so that's why they call it that. And I got it because I had played it on the Vita, and it was pretty fun, but it was when I was doing GameFly. And back then I had this, like, it was just this itch to, like, send stuff back so I could try something new and make the most out of the subscription, and that's why I ended up getting rid of it, because it was, couldn't do it. But, it's usually $40, and I was like, I'm not paying $40 for it, but I will pay $20 for it, so...
So it's not an MMO.
It is not an MMO. No, it's a single player game all the way.
It sounds like the Kingdom Hearts of Final Fantasy.
It's an okay description.
Okay.
It's the Final Fantasy of Final Fantasy.
Makes me uncomfortable.
It should. It's very anime. I'm going to make you play it. We're bringing it back. We're bringing back the bets. We're bringing them back, and Jason's going to play.
Oh, what do you own it on?
A Switch. I got it on Switch today.
Oh, no. That means I could have it. No. Don't make me play this game.
Have you bought a single thing for the Switch since we all went in on... And you didn't technically buy it. You don't own it outright. But since Luigi's Mansion?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. It's almost been a year now.
I don't even think I've played anything on the Switch since that. I do own a physical copy of Super Mario Maker 2.
That's true. You got that for your birthday? No, not your birthday.
I think I got it for... No, I think it was my birthday. I think I did get it for my birthday from my youngest brother.
Cool.
You know what I wish I was playing, Karch?
I want to hear it, yes.
Ghost of Tsushima.
Yes, you do.
I want to play it so bad because I haven't beaten The Last of Us Part 2 yet, and I'm ashamed of myself. But I will say this: you keep teasing me. You keep doing this carrot on the stick thing. You're like, "Hey, Jason, 19 hours in, this is the last big section. Okay, 21 hours in, this is the last big section." I think you've told me that 3 times now. Ever since I hit like the 18-hour mark, you've been like, "Oh, this is the last big section."
It's not my fault.
Oh, this is the last big section.
It's not my fault. You keep playing it in like 45-minute increments.
No, I don't. I keep putting in at least an hour, if not more. So
it's a combination of, because I finished it so fast. When you tell me
how did you finish it so fast is my question. Oh, you know what? I've been sitting here this whole time and I've never turned my lighting on, but I'm going to do it now.
Good, do that. The way I finished it so fast is because I just don't care. And as far as like, I didn't have like, I wasn't role playing. Like whether or not you realize it, a lot of the time when you play a video game, you're role playing. And I wasn't doing that in this game. I was just watching it. And I don't mean that negatively, but I wanted to see the story. But I wasn't putting myself in Ellie's shoes or any of the other characters and trying to play, oh, I'm going to stealth like this, or I am going to go in guns blazing. But like there was no forethought. I wasn't trying to sneak around. I didn't care about cards. I didn't care about safes. If I found one, I just looked the what do you call it? The combination up. I was beelining because I wanted the next story beat, and it didn't matter what I had to do to get to it.
I mean, in some ways that makes sense, but in other ways, I feel like you maybe didn't fully give this game a chance. I don't expect you to role play it. It's just like,
no,
if you're going that fast, like, I mean,
by the time,
nobody beat this game in 19 hours.
The only other explanation is that like I shut the game off, and I don't even know, dude. I don't even like it lost some time somehow, but I would very much disagree that I didn't experience the game because there's nothing to experience
I'm not
outside
saying that.
the
I'm not
stories.
saying that. Yeah, no, and I agree with that too. And I mean, and you did switch the difficulty down earlier than me
from the get-go.
Yeah. So there's that too, that did cost me a little bit of time, but so I'm at like 21 and a half hours. I do think it is overstaying its welcome a little bit, and I will be more detailed about that during our spoiler cast, which hopefully we get to do next week. But yeah, like I wanted to beat this game on Monday, and I had every intention, and I sat down and I was like, I'm at this end part. Like, it feels like the game's over. I probably have 15 minutes left. And I sat down and I played it. I'm like, are you kidding me? They opened up this whole other plot line that just didn't need to happen. It didn't need to happen. And I mean, obviously I need to wait and see till the end to tell you if it did or didn't need to happen. But at the time I felt it didn't need to happen. And I'm kind of disappointed because I feel like it could have been buttoned up so nicely, and they just didn't take that opportunity. It's like, no, we want another 5 hours out of this game, and then they just did this, and I just cannot help but feel like this game is overstaying its welcome with the part that I'm at.
I agree, and the reason they make a decision in the story that forces this section you're talking about to need to exist. Like there's several ways they could have tied it up. Because the thing is, without spoiling it, there's a
be careful, tread lightly.
The thing that ties this entire game together didn't require this last section. Let's just say that, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And so it feels superfluous. It reminds me of not literally the Scouring of the Shire, but tonally the Scouring of the Shire, because it's like, oh, we're not done yet. The Return of the King is not the end of the Return of the King. I'm talking from Lord of the Rings. It reminds me of a show where you're like, oh yeah, cool, and then they're like season 5, and you're like, there doesn't need to be a season 5. Kind of, yeah. I know I keep saying it, and I know it's a joke, but you just know that there might be like a few encounters of combat. Just barrel through them, and you will get to the end tonight if you play tonight.
Yeah, we'll see. I haven't eaten dinner yet, so
sure.
But anyway, sorry, I kind of transitioned right from what I wish I was playing right into what I have been playing.
It was a good transition.
But what have you been playing, my friend?
I have been playing Ghosts of Tsushima. Tsushima. You have to say it right.
Lucky mofo.
Well, I spelled it wrong again.
Stop doing that,
So
dude.
I tweeted it out earlier this week while I was playing, and I tried to do the hashtag thingy, and I misspelled it. So any chances of people seeing that was immediately thrown out the window. Anyway,
you hurt my soul. It's like it's tea, sushi, and then ma.
I know it's my fat fingers. It's not that I don't know how. I'm just like, and then boom, I spelled it wrong.
Okay.
Anyway, Tsushima. No, it's great. All right. So I bought it Saturday and I've been playing it on and off for about a week. I'm still not that far. Unfortunately, this game does not let you track your time, like your save file, and like it won't let you know how long you've been playing. So I have to say somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 to 5 hours at the most.
I'm going to get a stopwatch for this game.
Yeah, that sounds fun. Everybody loves to time their gaming sessions with a stopwatch. Hold on, I got to fix my camera here.
You were talking to an industrial engineer. I do time studies for a living.
That's true. Ugh.
No, I mean, I don't anymore, but I used to.
All right, so this game is a breath of fresh air after The Last of Us, only because The Last of Us is so what it is, and Ghost of Tsushima is so what it is. And it's just,
I think that means Sony knew what they were doing when they kind of changed up the release order.
I will say that I think we both were, but I was definitely skeptical. Like, what are you doing putting these so close together? But it wasn't as close for someone who's going to play both like back to back anyway, like we did, or like I am, and like you are going to soon.
Yeah.
It worked out pretty well. I'll get some of the negatives out of the way. It has the benefit of going so soon after for being such a different kind, a more video gamey kind of game, being far less cerebral. It's the Japanese on the island of Tsushima versus the Mongols, the dirty, angry, barbaric Mongols. Kill those Mongols. What about the Mongol babies? Nobody cares. Kill the Mongols. It's like they killed us, so we're gonna kill them, and there will be no nuance and but what about the other side? So that's nice.
Well, that's kind of interesting.
What is?
The perspective of that.
Yeah, and who knows?
It's kind of refreshing, like you said, that you just get to view the enemy as the enemy, and you don't have to feel bad for them.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of nice.
But at the same time, The Last of Us has ruined it for me, because I do find myself, I'm like, but are we going to be like... are we going to get a moment where Jin Sakai, the main character, is like, oh no, I am the monster, and I am the ghost of Tsushima? And
no, you won't.
I don't think so, because you're never going to go attack the Mongols on their home territory. That's never happening. But so that's the positive. The negative of going so close to the Last of Us is that this is an open world game by a studio that's never done an open world game before.
Okay, hold on though. So you would not consider Infamous Second Son an open world game?
I haven't played that. Is it an open world game?
Ish. It is not linear, but
this is though. It doesn't matter if that might be. This is definitely an open world game. Like this is
what I'm saying is that it's more or less an open world game. It's not like The Last of Us. It is like you get dropped in the city, you go to these different points, you get to do what you do.
I realize it's not The Last of Us, but neither is Ghost of Tsushima. So like
that's what I'm saying. I don't know if I would classify Second Son as an open world game.
That's okay. That's really not the point though. The point is that that you have an open world game and you have a very on rails game done by one of the best like mocap people in video games, and so you come off used to these like top-notch performances, ludicrously good facial animations, and like general model animations, and really well directed cinematic cutscenes. And every one of those is like lacking in Ghost. Like even so, the lip sync is done for the English VO. I wanted to do the Japanese voiceover, but because the lip sync doesn't change, it's way too jarring. But even in English, it's still kind of off. And so it's like, oh, guys, what are you doing? Like the face
is a little strange because it's so weird because when I think of lip sync, I think of going from Japanese to English.
Well, normally yeah.
And so like immediately I think of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Mm-hmm. Because you actually introduced me to that. I'd never seen movies like that before. You and I were friends, and granted, like 5th grade, but yeah, like I remember watching that at your house, and we did I think we watched it twice. I think we watched it like once in Japanese with subtitles, and then once with the English,
Chinese, technically.
Oh, okay. Well, my bad. But yeah, it's just interesting to hear like the dub is bad backwards, because I've never heard that before.
Right. Well, I mean, it's a Western studio, And then
Sure.
they made a game available in Japanese in a Western market, which isn't normally something for all I know, the Japanese version of this game doesn't have that problem, but the American version, like assuming there is a difference,
Okay.
because a lot of the time studios will change the lip sync. Anyway, I couldn't do it in Japanese. Because as cool as it sounds, and as much as I don't mind reading subtitles, what would happen is I would read the subtitle, and then my eyes would snap up, and all of a sudden their mouths would be just totally off. I'm like, nope, can't do it. So I switched it to English. The English voice acting is good, but you get goofy things like characters talking over each other. Like some character won't quite have finished their sentence, and another will start theirs. I'm like, guys, what are you doing? What is that? Come on. And then you get cutscenes where like the camera just stays zoomed out, and this isn't a bug or anything. This is just how they did it. Like the characters meet up on the road and they just start talking to each other, but you're like zoomed off to the side. So they're not even centered and focused. It's just weird coming from The Last of Us into this. If I hadn't been playing something like The Last of Us, I probably wouldn't care or notice nearly as much, if at all. So.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And I did see a couple of headlines say like glitch of Tsushima.
There's a couple that I saw too, and I can see, so you can climb a lot of stuff, like because things are about the height that you can jump to. So, you can like scamper up a wall, but you can't like it's in no way like Breath of the Wild or Assassin's Creed Odyssey where you just climb a sheer cliff face or anything like that. There are clear like designated footholds, like Uncharted style. So like what happens is when you're like jumping up and down or climbing up and down, it gets a little hinky anytime you add like verticality to it, which is a shame because verticality is kind of a big part with the assassination stuff that they're going for, but I don't know. It's not a big bother for me.
So how would you compare this in terms of like the combat style? What would you say it's most akin to? Is it like most akin to God of War? Is it most akin to like the one that comes to mind where I think Samurai was who did Bloodborne?
From Software.
Yeah, the From Software game.
Sekiro?
Yeah, Sekiro.
I played Sekiro for like 5 minutes at your house, and so
Right.
I can't really speak to it. I guess it would have to be closest to those, but there's a lot of like. It's not at all a hack and slash game. You can't just walk in and smash a square and dodge and win. You do have to parry. So let's start with samurai combat. Let's start with you're the ghost of Tsushima, a samurai who is like the last of his clan / like army. He survived miraculously, and he's trying to save his lord from the Mongols and save his island and repel the Mongols. And to do that, he has to be not just a samurai, but the ghost of Tsushima, which implies that he's going to be sneaky stabby stab, which is, as we all know, if you've ever followed any kind of samurai-based folklore media, is a no-no for the Bushido Code of Honor. You don't do that. Right at the beginning, the samurai send out one dude. He rides on a horse down to the Mongols. He's like, come and fight me with your best warrior. And they just chop him to bits. Like 4 guys just jump on him and they kill him. Or maybe one guy comes and chops it. It's comical. It's kind of supposed to be like, look where your honor got you. They don't care about that one bit. And they're going to fight you tooth and nail, that kind of thing. And
guerrilla
so, of course,
warfare.
Exactly. Well, not even guerrilla warfare. Just like, we're not going to play your stupid game. It's like,
right. We're not going to line up
exactly
on this side and you line up on that side and we'll say 1, 2, 3, go. We're not going to do that.
Right. So when that doesn't work, they're like, oh, they played dirty. And like Jin Sakai is the main character's name of Clan Sakai. He's like, they played dirty, and like this one guy's like, doesn't matter, and he's like, I can't do that. It's like, then you're gonna. It's like that's not. We don't have that luxury right now. Okay, we need to do this thing, and if you want to do this thing, you're gonna have to stab that guy from behind. So you have ghost combat. That's how they refer to the sneaky, and then you have the samurai combat. The samurai is very like, you stand your ground, you go toe to toe with your enemies. That's where the parrying comes in. Enemy attacks, you parry, and you counterattack. They do have a guard meter that you have to break down with one type of attack. And then you can, once their guard is down, you just you wail on them. Hopefully you kill them. If not, the guard resets and you kind of start that over. A big emphasis on multiple characters attacking you at once. So if you don't take time to sneak around and pick them off, you can have a lot of people coming at you with different weapon types. So you've got sword masters, you've got shield masters, you've got spear users, you've got these big hulking dudes with like hammers and stuff, and they all require a different tactic. And Jin can have many stances, and so each stance is good against one. You can switch them on the fly. So I finally unlocked a few abilities. And what I find is it's very fighting game-esque in some ways. Like, you've got one guy who attacks, and so you parry him in one stance. You do a couple attacks, you do a quick button combination to switch to another stance, and then you start attacking on this other guy, and then again, you parry this other incoming attack from behind, and then this guy's shooting at you with a bow from far away, and it's really hectic. But
that's what reminded me of Sekiro, was the kind of the different stances and that you could kind of go after and say, well, this is going to be my style.
And you can brute force your way as like a single style. Like if I wanted to, so each stance, for instance, has its own tree of skills that you can pour points into, and obviously you can pour points into one only until you get to the next one, etc. But you will have a harder time with the enemies that are strong against those stances.
Sure. It's like Pokemon.
Kind of, yeah. It's a very there's a wheel. There's resistances, we'll call them,
rock paper scissors,
and weaknesses. And then you have the ghost stuff, which it comes a little bit later, like, essentially once, midway through the quote unquote tutorial of the game, you start unlocking your ability to assassinate people, which starts unlocking like your ability to crouch and see through, that, I don't know what you call that, but every game has it. If it has
Predator mode,
exactly.
Stealth mode. Yeah.
So early on, you don't have that, and it's actually kind of troublesome because like this game is beautiful and detailed and dense, and so it's very difficult to find enemies because there's no HUD, which is not no HUD, but there's almost no HUD, like just no HUD. It's weird how little there is. It's quite jarring at first, but I've come to really enjoy it. So you're walking around this, awesome landscape, and at best you might have like a teeny tiny bit of text in the upper left corner that gives you your objective, like how far it might be or what you need to do in the next moment if you're in the middle of an immediate quest line. Other than that, all you have is the environment, obviously, and then the wind. The wind is your compass, and so it's always blowing a little bit. And then you can swipe up on the touchpad and it'll give it a big gust in whatever direction it's blowing in. That's the direction of your current quest. And so that's the direction you want to go in. Unless you're just exploring the world. It's very interesting. And I love it. It's great. It's really fun to not have to, because it does a really good job of not making you bring up your map either. You don't have to because I hate The Witcher because it much like Ghost of Tsushima. It's very dense and detailed and beautiful, but I just don't know where I am. I don't know where I am ever in that game. I don't know if I'm on the right path to get to the because it's so big, and it's like, yeah,
that's
there's like
the beauty.
But not if I want to go somewhere. It's complicated, and I'm not having that problem in this game. So whatever problem I'm having in The Witcher, it's hard to articulate, but I'm definitely not having it in Ghost. But
yeah, I've heard some comments that like if they did anything exceptional and stand out from the other kind of third person action RPG first party Sony titles, it's the HUD and the way that you do exploration and the way that you do quest finding. So that's kind of intrigued me. I'm excited to get in there and see what it's all about. And if you look at there's like a YouTuber called Game Maker's Toolkit, and he kind of goes through some similar things of like how you can go through and how these developers will design games such that you don't necessarily need the HUD they provide you. I think they actually use The Witcher as an example where you can turn off the HUD and still play the game.
That's true. Maybe that's all I need to do, because I've heard of that feature.
Yeah, and they'll give you these context clues of like west of this mountain or, whatever it is. And then, you can go do that on your own without having to have the markers and the whatever.
Yeah.
But I respect that design choice and that design philosophy. And it's really cool that they were able to pull that off and do it well. And I'm excited to jump in hopefully next week and see what that's all about.
Yep. I'm going to swing back around to combat real quick again. I'm playing on normal. I don't want to bump it up to hard or easy. I don't think I'm ready for hard, and easy sounds just a smidge too easy. I think normal's just right, at least for now. I know that, like any open world game, if you just run off and do all the fun side quests before you start doing any major quest stuff, you'll get overpowered, and then everything becomes easy. So we'll see how long normal feels appropriate. But yeah, combat was difficult to adjust to, and I don't know why, but I was not getting it. I wasn't particularly frustrated, but I was like, man, why isn't this clicking? And then eventually it did. So you might run into that. Other people might run into that as well. But it's really fun. It's just satisfying. Combat and encounters are short and frequent. And like, you might find an entire camp of Mongols. You might find some bandits who are taking advantage of the war to, like, raid a little town. And there's only like 3 or 4 of them. You have this cool option called standoff, where if you walk up to a camp, you can just press like up on the D-pad, and he'll just automatically call out somebody, and it's like this little cutscene happens, and then it's basically a mini game where you hold down triangle. He's got his hand on his sword. You wait for them to make a move, and then he does that quick classic samurai slash, and it's like an instant kill on them. And then combat starts. The other enemies swarm you, and you do the regular combat. There's an ability that lets that standoff thing increase the number of people that you stand off against. So one guy will come at you, and then you'll stand off against him. The next guy will come at you, you'll swipe at him, and it basically just keeps a combo going up. And I can't wait to unlock that one, because that's all. I just want to challenge them right at the gate, and I want to slash through everybody in that camp without ever actually having to do anything.
That very much reminds me of Kill Bill.
Yeah, and it is. It is the samurai fantasy realized not quite like I think we've ever seen it before. And if that's, you mentioned the HUD, and what was the other thing? Something else that it does really well, but like
the quest finding.
There's nothing like this game either. I said that about The Last of Us last week, but there's definitely nothing like this game as far as the samurai fantasy. There are lots of samurai games out there, don't get me wrong. Lots of feudal Japan games out there, but they are more like, hey, remember that these people existed, and this is the kind of style of clothing they wore and the weapons they used, but not like, and again, this is a fantasized, romanticized version of it, like it has been for hundreds of years at this point, but it's the perfect idea of that romanticization, that fantasy. So it's really fun, and I want to play more of it, a lot of more of it in the next.
You're making me excited to jump in.
Mm-hmm. Last good thing I'll say about it. Okay. Excellent horse. The horse is the most easiest control horse I've ever played in the game.
Because I hate horses in real life and in video games. So
you
cool
get to pick colors, and then you get to pick a name, and he'll call it that name throughout the rest of the game. He comes immediately. You whistle, and he comes out of nowhere, like a teleportation horse, like
Roach. I'll name him Roach or Epona, one of the two.
No, you have to pick, because he says the name of the horse.
Oh, he does. He says it.
Mm-hmm.
How do they do that? It's weird.
They give you 3 choices.
Oh, they give you 3 choices. I can't type it.
No.
Oh, that's crap.
No, there's none of that.
I hate this game. I'm not playing it.
Oh well, more for me.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry. Excellent horse controls. Great.
Yeah, that was it. That is. Okay. I've got more to say, but it was just come out as a jumble right at this point. It's a good game.
Save it for the spoiler cast.
If you like the idea of this game, if you were on the fence, if something about like the state of play they did like 2 months ago, where they showed the combat off, did a good enough job showing you this is the general feel of what the game will be, but at the same time there was something missing. That something can only be discovered by playing it. You can't see this game exactly for what it is until you get in and see the wind sweeping around you, see those golden leaves floating through the air, putting on the different armor and hats, and the changing up the sheaths and scabbards for your sword. It's a beautiful game. Like, it's a very pretty
worth the
game.
$60?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I'm going to get a lot of time out of it, a lot of enjoyment. Curious to where the story is going to go. I guess I'm going to get a bunch of people together, because that's all I've been doing so far is like, there's this clan over here, and there's this like troop over here, and this person over here, and I'm going to get them all together, do a bunch of quests for them, and we're going to raid the thing and save the day. And I guess that's just going to be it. I'm going to repel it. It's not a nuanced story. Like, there's a small bit with Jin and because there's flashbacks to him as a young boy.
No spoilers. No spoilers.
Well, it's not a spoiler. That's where they do the tutorials. I'm just saying that's where the crux of the game is going to be from a narrative perspective. It's going to be him, it's going to be a lot of between the lines stuff of what it means to be honorable and to love your country and your countrymen, and maybe later what it means to be like, to think of the enemy and all that stuff. So we'll see. Okay, cool. Yeah. What else have you been playing, Jason?
For me, the only other thing that I played this week was Borderlands 3. And I gotta say, I am still really enjoying it, and I think I'm getting a better sense for what this game is. I did reach level 12, which allowed me to unlock a ton of weapons and armor and grenades that I had been saving that unlocked at level 12, and so I was able to do this like massive upgrade, and I love my new weapons. And then there was a story mission that we went on that was the final story mission for the section we were in, and honestly, it took like an hour and 20 minutes to get through it. But it was really cool because it was like, you go, you encounter a ton of guys, you kill, and then there's like a little break, and you keep walking, and then like boom, another wave shows up, and so I guess the cool thing about it was at this point I kind of knew what I'm getting myself into. So I know that if I go into an area and I want like a 15, 20, 30 minute thing, then I'm going to do a side quest. But if I'm ready to buckle in and like have some pretty intense stuff happen and do some pretty intense encounters, I do the main story missions. So I'm finally starting to understand the flow of the game and the game loop. The only thing I will say is that at the end of that particular section, we had done all of the story missions for that section, and we did the final story quest. They made us go back to the ship. And I'm like, I don't want to go back to this ship that I've been struggling with and to navigate this terrible mini map and figure out what level of the 4 levels I'm supposed to be on and figure out this kind of maze of like how to get to point A to point B. And I just think that's like this game is fun when it doesn't get in its own way. I just wish that it let me play more. I love the combat. I love the gameplay loop. I don't want to be interrupted by these half-baked story sections where I'm on this stupid hub world ship thing. Like I think it's completely unnecessary. And I kind of just wish it was more up to me, like in the Outer Worlds, where you could just say like, oh, I'm in the ship now because I chose to be in the ship, and I'm going to this world because I chose to go to that world. And then once I'm there at that world, I can do anything I want to do. And I'm thinking maybe it's just because we're still early in the game and it will eventually continue to open up more like it did before. But we'll see. But the point is, I'm really enjoying it. I love the combat. I love the gameplay. I love the gameplay loop. I love the loot system. And no complaints there. And I've gotten over that thing of like, oh, it's just kind of like Halo when there's, it's just waves of enemies. I've kind of gotten over that because of the excitement of using these different weapon types and these different skills. And I got a new skill in this. And what does that allow me to do in combat? And so like, I've overcome that part of my frustration with the game, and now it's just like, let me play. Get out of your own way. Let me play.
All right. You're still playing with Tyler, right?
I am. I think we might take a break from this game next week to play a different game called The Hunt, which is kind of like an indie. He described it as like a stealthy version of Fortnite where it's like more team focused and you actually have to cooperate with your team.
That sounds fun.
And that's intriguing. And it's a $40 game, but he got it on sale for $25. I'm going to try to shark a deal, see what I can find. So we might take a break to play that. But yeah, I'm still playing this with Tyler.
Cool. Do you think it would be more or less fun alone?
Just because I'm a little bit of a social gamer, I feel like it would be less fun just from that standpoint. But if you're talking purely like the actual mechanics and stuff, it would probably be. But if you just like intrinsically enjoy this type of game of like a looter shooter, then I think it would be fine to play alone. I can't speak to the difficulty of it because I have never played it by myself. But I do know one Colin Moriarty played the whole game by himself and said it was doable. So I don't think it's out of the question. If you wanted to play this by yourself, you totally could. But just by virtue of like me enjoying that time with friends, I think it's more fun to play with somebody else.
Cool. All right.
Have you been playing anything else?
I mean, I've been playing a little bit of Harvest Moon, Soria Seasons, whatever. Nothing to talk about there, though.
Did you get your horse back?
Mine was never stolen, so Juliet was ahead of me, like in the game, because she just kind of goes to bed whenever she wants, which starts the new day. Like when she's done for the day, like she's got like one boy that she's trying to woo.
It's 3 p.m. Whatever.
It doesn't matter. Like as long as you fed your animals, like nobody's gonna care that you didn't talk to them that day, that kind of stuff. So you can just kind of speed through the game if you want to, which she does. She got hers taken away. So I knew it was coming because I had forgotten about it and from the original, and then so I made sure to love my horse as much as possible, and he didn't take it away from me.
Gotta love those horses.
Gotta love them.
Well, right, cool. I'm glad you got to pick your horse. Keep your horse. I still feel bad for Juliet, but I think lesson learned: don't go to bed in the game at 3 p.m. Go pet your horse.
Exactly. Can't slack off from your chores.
Right. That's a lesson learned. I'm ready to talk about Game of the Year.
Me too.
So far.
Me too.
So far.
It's been a long year. Whoa, boy, has it.
Yeah.
A lot of good games, though.
Yeah. And I feel badly because I feel like I have barely scratched the surface of what 2020 has to offer. But it's interesting because what I noticed, I listed every single game that I played this entire year. Mm-hmm. And it's like close to 30. Which I get is maybe not as many as most people have played to this point in the year. But for me, and I didn't beat every single one of those, but for me, that's pretty good. What I noticed is a lot of them are from 2019.
Yeah.
And it's weird. And then I wonder with coronavirus if we'll see some of these 2021 games getting delayed, and I might make another sweep through 2020 to get, next year to address some of these games I didn't have the opportunity to play this year.
Well, it'll be interesting because you'll have that opportunity also in combination with the virus and any potential delays, but also because of next gen and how friendly backwards compatibility. No, that's not the word. Cross gen will be. So you might have another like grace period, so to speak, to play it to get on your backlog. I have a lot of 2019 games on my list too. Funnily enough, all of my contenders are 2020 games. But I have a fair mix. We here at Never Free to Play are, of course, never free to play. So when we discuss Game of the Year, we are strictly speaking of games that we have played either for the first time this year or at least, significantly so. So, maybe we dabbled it in the past, but this was the year we dove into it or beat it or whatever. So there's no restriction on like only. Otherwise, this list gets real short and this conversation is over before it starts. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because 2019.
So how do you want to do this? So what I did is I have a list, but I only ranked my top 3.
I ranked my top 3 as well, and I have a beaten and not beaten list. Let's do we'll kind of like work our way from the bottom up to of least importance to most importance. You can run through, whatever you want. Really, you take as long as you want. I don't care. I'm not trying to get through this really fast. I will go through my list in such a way that I'll just be like, I played this. I thought about this. I thought this about it, and then move on until we start getting to the more, the games that had more importance or I thought were especially good or something like that.
Okay. And that's fair. And I think for me, I'm probably just going to name my top 3 because I don't know that I sunk enough time into any of these other games to really speak and tell. For me, my list was kind of easy because it's like, did I play more than 50% of this game? Okay, well then it's a contender. And then if I didn't like it enough to put that time into it. So
that's usually a really good measuring stick, especially if like you're a dabbler and you don't put more than like 2 hours into a game, a non-multiplayer game, unless you really, 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 really like it.
Right.
It's cheating.
Okay, so let's dive. Maybe a little bit cheating, but that's just like what my habits are. So
it's not a game. It's not a contest.
Do you want to go first, or should I?
I'll go first with what I've played, but I haven't beaten this year. I'll run through this real quick.
Go for it.
Obviously, GOTY So Tsushima. I'm going to go backwards. We played some Streets of Rage 4, Astroneer. All I'm going to say about Astroneer is that I was thinking about it yesterday. And I was like, man, I want to get back into that. And once Sean gets set up, I cannot wait to play some more of that with him and Robert and discover what's beyond that horizon. Mm-hmm. Story of Seasons, friendly of Mineral Town.
Friend of the show.
Friend of the show, Mineral Town. There's no real beating that game, but there's a lot of milestones that kind of signify that you've done most of what needs to be done. And I'm nowhere near that, but hopefully I get there. Panzer Paladin. I feel bad because I got this game and I was really stoked about it and I was having a lot of fun, and then I started playing 3 other things at once and it's kind of fallen to the wayside, but I will play it more. Final Fantasy IX, I am going to do a Let's Play. I am. I'm going to do a Final Let's Play. I'm going to do it in the morning because what happens is I'll get up, I'll walk the dog. Juliet's still usually watching TV. And then I'll play Magic for like 2 hours. Instead of playing Magic, I'll do my Finally Plays.
What time do you wake up?
Anywhere between 8 and 9.
Good God.
What does that have to do with anything?
You know tomorrow's Friday, right?
No, did I say tomorrow? I meant Saturday.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, don't you have to work? I wake up at 9. I walk the dog. 2 hours. I play Magic. Whatever. It's a Friday. Nobody's in the office.
Literally.
Yeah.
I played some of that Median XL Sigma mod for Diablo 2. I really thought I was going to play more of that, and I haven't touched it since, and I probably won't again. I played and quit Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. Talked about that a couple episodes ago.
I'm proud of you for that.
Thank you. Stardew Valley. I was getting back into that as I prepped for Story of Seasons, and I'll always return to that from time to time.
I'm not proud of you.
You're not proud of me for that?
No.
I love that game, though. That's my comfort food.
Love it. I know you love it. I'm not proud of you for considering it for Game of the Year 2020.
I'm not. This isn't a considered. I'm just going through games I've played. This is not a consideration. None of these are even close to considerations.
Okay, cool.
The Witcher 3. I'm sorry. I don't think I'm ever going to get past, I still haven't even finished the Bloody Baron quest line ever. I just don't think I'm ever going to play this game.
The game.
I know, but there's something about it that I think this time I was playing it prior to Final Fantasy VII, and
just give it up. It's fine. You don't like Western RPGs. I don't like JRPGs. We're never going to see eye to eye on this. Never play another Western RPG again. Never. I don't want you to play Avowed. But I really don't want you to play Avowed.
But Ghost is a Western RPG.
Oh gosh, that's like some gray area.
Takes place in the East. Transistor, I didn't like it. This is from Supergiant Games, who made Bastion and Pyre and the Hades game that's currently on Epic Games Store, like early access exclusive, whatever. Transistor was not fun. It was too much like Bastion with none of the fun of Bastion, I guess is the best way to say it. And none of the zaniness of Pyre. So I put that down pretty quick. Got it on sale early this year. Just didn't play it. Played my first few hours of Halo. I'll probably come back to that eventually, but it was not that fun because I don't do first-person shooters and it's old. So I played a hot minute of Goat Simulator and I beat Hatoful Boyfriend.
You beat it?
Well, I didn't beat it, but I rolled credits. Remember, I died. I was assassinated by the Shadow Council.
I didn't realize you rolled credits though.
I rolled credits. I died.
Good for you.
I got a game over. I didn't beat it.
That kind of makes me want to play it.
It took 45 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. I played some Indivisible. I'm not coming back to that game. It was fun and cute, but not fun enough at all to keep going. It's actually a very bland game. It wants to be a Metroidvania. And then it's not, and it wants to be some kind of active turn-based game, and then it's not really that either, and it's just, it's boring. And then Doom. I didn't beat it, but I played a lot of it, and I really love Doom. Doom is probably the closest contender on this list I just went through here. But still not quite good enough, and I have no, I think I got my fill. I don't have a strong desire to go play Doom Eternal because I wasn't oh, this wasn't enough Doom. I need more Doom. Yeah. That was plenty of Doom.
Sure.
All right. Do you want to talk about anything you've played this year?
Yeah, let me talk about the games that I considered but aren't on my top, and I will just run through them. kind of like you just did. So you mentioned Streets of Rage. Obviously, that's not considered for Game of the Year, although it is 2020. Borderlands 3, that's something I'm playing for the first time this year, and I really do enjoy it. And I would say that was pretty close to making the list, but it didn't quite. You're in my list.
Yeah,
I can see that you're in my list, but I'm going to keep going. Okay, it's fine. Astroneer. Again, that's like, I don't typically consider those multiplayer games as a Game of the Year contender for me. I just don't. I don't know. They can be really fun, but they're almost like, to me, more like party games than they are like games that would contend for that.
Pretty much.
Tetris 99, played a lot of that with Luke. It's really funny. He's convinced that the R2 and L2 buttons do stuff. Aww. He keeps telling me that that's what makes the blocks drop. And I keep telling him that's not true. But then he laughs at me and just continues to push only those buttons. He refuses to touch the D-pad.
Oh my goodness.
Which is the only thing in Tetris 99 that moves the blocks. He won't touch the D-pad. And basically what happens is it just stacks up, just like boom, boom.
Oh, Dad, you so dumb.
And so yeah, he gets like a good 45 seconds in any given game because he refuses to touch the D-pad. Okay. Anyway, Super Mario Maker 2, another game I play with my son. Not a contender for Game of the Year, but super fun. That's a 2019 game. Final Fantasy VII, the original one, obviously ported to Steam, but still not a 1997 game. This one was probably, if you had made me do like top 5 or top, 10, definitely would be on there for this past year for what I've played, but it didn't make top 3.
I would love for you to go back to that.
I'm going to after. I don't know. I'm trying to decide if I want to do a palate cleanser before I jump into Ghost of Tsushima. But I think what I want to do is beat Ghost of Tsushima and use this as a palate cleanser before Cyberpunk.
I took about 2 weeks off between when I beat Last of Us and Ghost. So,
but I cannot beat Final Fantasy VII in 2 weeks. I can't.
No, I'm not expecting you to beat it.
Yeah. So I think I want to save it until after I'm done with Ghost and then do it before Cyberpunk, because that's a huge gap.
True.
Because I would have till like
that's
November.
A good idea. You should do that. I agree.
Yeah. 19 is Dauntless, which is basically like a free-to-play version of Monster Hunter. And although it was really fun with some nice quality of life things that Monster Hunter didn't have, such as easily being able to get into a game with your friends, obviously not. It's just not on the list. Next is Yakuza Kiwami, 2016 game. It's a remake of, I can't remember what year, maybe like a 2008 or 9,
something like that.
Yeah, you could go watch my Let's Play on it. I didn't like it.
No, you did not.
And Arkham Asylum, I think that one it suffered from me anticipating The Last of Us Part 2, and so like I just could not fully commit myself to it, although I really did enjoy it. Sea of Thieves, another multiplayer game that's just, it was a lot of fun, but it was not a Game of the Year contender. Same goes for Rocket League, same goes for Jackbox Party Pack, same goes for Payday 2, same goes for Far Cry 5, same goes for Call of Duty Warzone. So I just get the bunch there. And then I will just talk briefly about the other games that I played. Budget Cuts, that's a VR game. I've talked about it on the podcast before. I really enjoyed it, but that's not on my list. I only played the Final Fantasy VII Remake demo, and it was amazing, but I mean, I did not play the full game. So, yeah. And then just a couple others to mention. Luigi's Mansion 3, Luigi's Mansion 3. It's a 2019 game that I played on the Switch this year. Did not love it. And the same goes for Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. It was also a 2019 game, and you and I have had our conversations about that. Yeah. I can't get into it mostly because of the puzzle component, but there's also some issues I have with the combat. So
right.
That's the list of games that I consider or that I played, and I didn't beat every single one of these games. In fact, I don't think I beat any of these games, but they are not my top 3 for 2020. No. So with that being said, that was a lot of me talking. What is your number 3 on your list, Karch?
My number 3. Just real quick, I want to talk about how the games that I did beat, and then we'll jump right in. I won't go into details on any of these, but I played and beat Resident Evil 2, Ni no Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch. Finally beat, after so many years, Final Fantasy Tactics, War of the Lions. That's a good game. Kingdom Hearts 3, the DLC. Fire Emblem 3 Houses, I finally beat that after last year. And then Children of Morta, which is a very good game that you should still play. All right.
Noted.
Number 3 on my list for Game of the Year contender. So this could change by the end of the year. It doesn't really mean much, but it is The Last of Us Part 2. And I can't say much about this that we haven't already discussed at least earlier. And then, of course, without getting into spoiler territory. So we will be doing a spoiler cast next week on that, separate from the episode. Hopefully next week, maybe after that. We'll see. It's, we kind of missed the window on it being the hot topic, so it doesn't really matter how long we take anymore. Mm-hmm. But I did very much enjoy this game. It's a very good game. It's not as good as the first one in a lot of ways. In most ways, overall, it is, I'd put it underneath. I like Uncharted 4 better than both of those games as far as like Naughty Dog, experiences go. But it's still very good. I don't regret a moment of playing it. I still think about it, time to time, and I listen to a new podcast or spoiler cast of some kind, and I see a piece that I didn't consider, or I reconsider something that I thought I was kind of solid on. It's like, yes, I think this way about that, and then it's like, nah, maybe I don't. And then usually I do come back to how I originally thought about it, but I like art that makes you think. This art makes you think, even if it's heavy-handed, even if sometimes it is manipulative, and even if the gameplay, while well-polished, is stale, because it's the same from before with some slight enhancements, and it's the same from the beginning all the way to the end, again, with only some moderate changes throughout, like, okay, now you have another handgun, and now you have a different long gun, and with, not that, I don't know what to do, but it is a mark against it in my book, so.
Okay, that's fair.
Jason, what is your number 3?
My number 3 that I did not finish, but that I hope to one day, is Half-Life Alyx.
You were very excited for this.
I was super excited for it. I bought it at launch. I did play through a lot of it. It is a VR game, which I think they are working on, or maybe they've already released, but I think they're just working on playing it in 2D. I would say this is a game that you definitely have to experience in VR. And I had a ton of fun with it. I mean, I really did. I think the story is serviceable. It's not The Last of Us caliber, but it's serviceable. It's good for a Half-Life game. The gameplay is great. Just the VR. This is, to me, the game. It's the killer app for VR. Mm-hmm. It is the game that's like, this is everything that you wanted in VR, and this is a AAA VR game. I don't know what else to say about it other than if you have an Oculus, if you have a VR headset capable of playing this game, definitely check it out. I do hope to go back and finish it up at some point. But I had some technical issues that precluded me from finishing it. I have rectified those, but I haven't gone back to it. And that isn't a knock on the game so much as it is just a statement about how draining a VR experience can be. and at the end of the day, what I want to gravitate towards is kind of a more relaxing experience. And I think it says something when I consider The Last of Us Part 2 a more relaxing experience.
That's so funny. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, even all those things stripped away, Half-Life Alyx has its own horror kind of zombie component to it too.
It does.
On top of all your other problems you're having and having to stand, etc. Then you have to play a game in which you're immersed in a very realistic world of horror, and yeah.
It's draining, man. It's draining, and it's intensive to have to stand there and play that and duck and do these things. And, when you're stealthing, you have to actually physically duck down behind these obstacles and so that the enemies don't see you. And, it's a whole thing. So, I mean, while it's incredible, It's still just incredibly draining to play, which is what has prevented me from finishing it. So it's at number 3, and I think it's well earned, and it's a fantastic game, and I think it shows the promise of what VR can be. And kudos to Valve for putting it out there, because they probably could have made just a strict Half-Life 3 and made $1 bazillion on it, but this, I think, was their passion, and they have always been strong supporters of VR technology, and obviously they are the owners of the Steam VR and of the Valve Index and of their VR headsets that they partnered with HTC for. So kudos to them. I just, I can't put it higher than 3.
Sure. So. Now, no one's it'll be no surprise when my number 3, The Last of Us Part 2, winds up on a lot of people's Game of the Year lists as number 1, let alone the top 5.
Sure.
Do you think you're going to see a lot of Half-Life Alyx on people's lists?
Depends on how deep they go. I think it would have to be on some people's top 5 because...
No, number 1. I'm talking number 1.
No, I don't think it'll be on anyone's number 1 because this year it's a tough year. You have The Last of Us Part 2. You have Ghost of Tsushima. You also have Cyberpunk.
You have Animal Crossing. Like, people are going to vote for Animal Crossing.
I mean, honestly, I mean, when you put it that way, maybe I wouldn't be so surprised if it was on people's number 1. If you're going to put Animal Crossing as your number 1, maybe you're crazy enough to put this game as your number 1.
Do you think, you say it's a testament to VR and it's like the app killer, but like, is it a good game outside of VR? Like, would this have helped? Like, because nobody got to play this. And I say nobody, I mean, comparatively to the people who have been frothing, and foaming at the mouth for another Half-Life installment and then immediately told, sorry, you're not going to be able to play this.
So here's where I land on it. Story-wise, I think it's fine. It's serviceable as a Half-Life game. When you talk about combat, they would have to alter the AI a little bit for it to be interesting as a flat experience. I think they give you a little bit of leeway being in VR, especially being that VR is such a new medium to experience a game. So I do think they afford you that, and I do think that would have to be altered to make it a compelling to flat experience.
Gotcha.
But that being said, you can make some slight alterations, and that would be a fun game that had an interesting story. But I just don't think... I think you have to make some concessions in difficulty when you're talking a VR experience versus flat experience, because so many people are just used to playing those flat experiences, and so everything comes so naturally in a first-person shooter versus when it's a VR, that AI might need a little bit of leeway in when it finds you or the hitboxes or stuff, stuff like that you're like, I know it's putting me in a little bit of a baby mode, but I accept it because I'm really struggling. So, but whereas a flat experience, I think would be a little bit different.
Sure. Obviously, they would have to be different.
Yeah.
But, all right.
What's your number 2, my friend?
Number 2, a game I waited a long time for, we discussed in part already, is Final Fantasy VII Remake.
All right.
I like this game a lot. I wish I would have been able to play it under different circumstances. It was still very early on in quarantine, and schedules were weird, and I don't know. It wasn't like there's just a couple memories I already have, negative memories I already have associated with it. And so I'd really like to play this game again to kind of just push those aside and have a different set of memories to associate with it. But I've talked about it a lot because I played it over the course of several episodes, and we played the demo back when that came out. But I mean, again, no game has ever realized and remade. There's never been such a huge gap between a remake like this to then come out the gate swinging so hard and getting it so right. The first 5 hours of this game are amazing. Especially just for nostalgic reasons. But even otherwise, it's just a really fun game before things start to get a little, like so the side quests really rear their heads, or before the combat gets a little kind of cheapy or cheaty, because they're still giving you, they're still treating you with kid gloves because it's the beginning and all that. But even up until like the final moments, it's just a well-produced, good-looking, mostly well-paced game. It's still a little long. It's both The Last of Us 2 and this could have shaved like anywhere between, we'll call it 10 to 15%. We won't say a flat hour, but I feel like somewhere you could have just cut this bit, tiny bit here, tiny bit here, tiny bit here. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Put this in the end game, all that kind of stuff. And then of course there is the ending. And if you want to hear me like talk like a crazy person about it, you can go check out our spoiler cast for this. That does a lot of weird stuff with the story that at first I was like, I don't know what to make of this. Then I was like, this is dumb. And then I finally came around like, this is actually potentially genius. It's a little heavy-handed, and they use Sephiroth way too much in this game. Like, they need to stop using Sephiroth in everything. They need to let you miss him, like it's become Star Wars and Vader. He's in everything, and they never stray outside of something Vader might be able to appear in, so they can throw Vader in there. And that's what Sephiroth has become for Final Fantasy VII in any context whatsoever, whether it's a movie, a game, a side game, etc. But it's still really good. I would love to play it again before the end of the year, just to kind of, because it is just one of those games. Like, the story will be different. The experience will be different your second time through. You're gonna see things you didn't notice. Things are gonna make sense that didn't make sense before. It really probably deserves a second playthrough, or at least I need to watch somebody play it, something like that. So,
okay,
that's my number 2.
Let me ask you this: do you feel like what Square ends up doing with the sequel will have any bearing on how you perceive this particular game?
I like to say no, but I've come to realize that that's just not possible. Like, in a vacuum, things shouldn't affect other things, like art shouldn't, like a bad sequel or a bad remake shouldn't affect it, but it does. It can, and anyway, like, it's always possible. Like, I'm trying to think of I love The Force Awakens. On any given day, I love or hate The Last Jedi, but I, without a doubt, cannot stand The Rise of Skywalker, and it ruins everything that comes before it. Like, I cannot watch those movies anymore. I won't watch them because, like, I know where it ends, and it's a big fat fart. Same thing with How I Met Your Mother.
That's a good point.
It's a really good show. It's got its ups, it's got its downs. But the last two, not just the last season, but the last 2 seasons are just terrible. They're not good. And it shows how that show should have ended so long ago, and gone out on a bang. But
yeah,
the remake didn't ruin the original, mostly because the remake is good.
Yeah,
but I don't think the remake ever would have ruined the original because they're so far apart. But yes, depending on what they do, the remake is the point of the remake is to have this new story that they're doing with Final Fantasy VII. Not new, but altered. And,
so let me, without getting in too far into spoiler territory, and you tell me if maybe you can't answer this question without getting into spoiler territory, but what are your hopes for the sequel? What are your hopes? What are your hopes for finishing the remake? I mean, are you hoping for like, let's just make this a trilogy? Are you hoping for like they take the time they need? Who cares if it's a decade? Like, just give me the ultimate experience.
That's a stupid mindset to have. Yeah.
What do you hope for?
My hope is a trilogy at this point, because you're not wrapping it up in one more game. That's not happening. Sure. I don't know. It's wide open both from a story perspective, and it's wide open from we only scrape the tip of the iceberg with this first 30-ish hour game. Like, it's a good game. It's a really good game. And if the design decision was to do this, they nailed it. But at the same time, it's unfeasible to make 7 more of these. Like, that's not what? No,
Right. No, yeah.
I
no,
can't imagine.
No.
And so like, but I also would hate to see them rush it. Not the game itself. Like, take 5 years to make a game. That's fine. I mean, that's a little long, but, quote unquote, take the time you need. But like I don't want to be sailing through the rest of the original Final Fantasy VII story because they have to catch up because they spent the entire game in Midgar. So, but totally. I can't wait. It'll be Kingdom Hearts all over again. A decade plus of titles, like 13 years, man. 13 years.
What if they put one out as like an exclusive on the Vita?
On the Vita, yeah.
Like,
the whole
whatever.
The only console that never got a Kingdom Hearts game. The PlayStation 2.
They just put one out like on the 3DS and one out on the Vita, one out on like I don't know, like you could only play it in Windows XP.
That's so funny. So yeah, that's my number 2.
All right.
They've already, there was some news the other day that says we've not just pre-production or anything, like, they've started full-on production and development of the second one. So I don't think it's crazy just that we might see this game in 2022. 2023 at the latest. I think anything further than that would indicate there's a problem because regardless of how long you want to split it out, like or how much ground you want to cover in the story, the game still can only be so long, and you've already have a lot of the architecture ready, and you're not going to right.
And this is hope.
Like, but is it going to be cross-gen that late? Like, that would be crazy if I can play this on a PS4. I have no idea. It's so crazy. I have no idea.
I don't know why it would be cross-gen, to be honest with you.
Because it's weird. Like, this is like I don't know. It's weird.
Because, well, here's my thing. Not so much from a technological standpoint as like just like a marketing and positioning standpoint. I just don't see why you would do that.
It would be silly.
If you're well, I mean, I suppose like Sony doesn't have a whole lot of say in what Square does, but I don't know.
Yeah, as long as they don't go crazy, I don't see this being any later in 2023. I think that's a reasonable like holiday, late, maybe early 2024. Again, anything longer than that is going to indicate there's some kind of problem.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Jason, what's your number 2?
All right. So my number 2, it's the only game on my top 3 that's not a 2020 game. And it is The Outer Worlds, because I started this game in 2019, but I actually beat it in early 2020. And I feel like this is a game that came out so late in 2019 that it didn't get a lot of love from people in the Game of the Year discussion in 2019. And so I want to put it on number 2 because I love this game. And I know that a lot of people I've said I love this game publicly. I've said I've loved this game on Reddit. And I know a lot of people have told me, well, Jason, you must just not have played a lot of RPGs in your time. So, okay, maybe that's true, but I just truly think there's something special about this game. And love it or hate it, I think most people hate it because it's a smaller experience. And they're like, why is this game only 15 hours? It's crap. And why are the planets so small? But I love how tight it was. I think that gave it something that you don't get from like even something as succinct as Red Dead Redemption 2. Like I don't want to spend 50, 60 hours in a game. I just don't. Like I love these tight little experiences. Sure, there was a little bit left to be desired in terms of exploration of these planets. And at some times it did feel like it was a bit of like a hallway. Like, okay, well, you're on a planet, but you're really walking down this hallway, and you're going to point B, and then you do the thing there, and then you walk back to your ship. I get that. I think that's valid criticism.
At least they didn't make you think that there was exploration, though. From the very early on, I was like, okay, this is how this game works. I'm not going to go explore this corner because there's nothing there, and that's okay.
Right. And I don't think every game has to be that. I don't think every RPG has to be that. Like if you want to call this not open world, fine. But I do think it was a well-crafted, tight experience that gave me a lot of options where like I don't recall in recent memory playing a game that I really truly felt like I had an impact on the ending. And this one I truly did. And okay, granted, I did not finish Fallout 4. And I was forced to rush through some of The Witcher 3, so I don't necessarily think I got the best ending, but I also think there were only like 4 endings to that game. So, take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, but I just really enjoy this game. I enjoy the flexibility. I enjoy the ability to have these non-violent paths. I enjoy the, like you said, you can do anything you want to in this game. It's not going to fail you. You can kill a main character who's giving you a quest. That's not going to change the outcome of the game, but it's maybe going to make it a little harder on you because you have to find an alternative way to do whatever it is you need to do on that planet. And so like I really liked the game. And yeah, it's my number 2 for 2020, even though it's a late 2019 game.
Couldn't agree more. I beat it last year, so it kind of doesn't qualify for me, but I agree with everything that you say. Like, my biggest complaint about that game is crappy melee, but that's true for most first-person games, and there's too much stuff to pick up. They don't have to do that part of Fallout. Like, I don't need that. I can't stand Skyrim because of that, too. Like, there's a cheese wheel and an apple in every stupid shelf.
It doesn't bother me because you can mark it as junk as soon as you pick it up and sell all your junk in one bulk sell when you get to a vendor. But and
on PC, that might be easier, but that's a clunky experience with a controller, which
totally
is what I use, even though I played it on PC.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's a great game. I love it.
I can't wait for the expansion. I'll probably pay for the DLC, which is something that I cannot tell you if I've ever paid for DLC.
It's a rare thing for me too. I don't know if I've ever paid for DLC in the modern gaming era, except for Kingdom Hearts 3. I bought the Remind stuff, but aside from that, couldn't say.
All right, I'm excited to see what your number 2 is.
My number 1.
Oh, your number 1. Yeah, I'm excited to see what your number 1 is.
My number 1 is Ori and the Will of the Wisps.
Of course.
Just a beautiful game in many senses of the word. I loved the first one. It was very moving, very fun, very challenging. Broke my hands in so many ways because I used a keyboard for the first one. Used a controller for this one, much easier.
Which is insane that you used the keyboard for the first one.
I don't know what's wrong with me, dude. I don't think I had a controller. I think I just didn't have one. I was like, but I bought the game and it's on PC, so I must be able to do this. And so I made it work.
Well, there you go.
But no, this Ori and the Will of the Wisps is everything the first one is and more. And that's about all I can say about it. Like, it is the most complete experience, though. And I didn't walk away from that thinking, but, there was none of that. I was like, that was great. That was an amazing, I don't know, like 10 to 15 hours, somewhere in that ballpark.
Are you going to try to play any of the remastered 4K content when it?
No, I don't. Like, if it ever comes to Switch, I might pick it up again or get the original on Switch and try that. Like, that's the only time I'm going to replay this game because, I want to be cozy when I do it because it won't be the first time through and I won't, I've got other things to do. I've got other games to play. So I may never play this game again. And if I play Final Fantasy VII Remake again, it might get bumped up, or who knows, Cyberpunk might blow me off my feet, and that'll be number 1.
I kind of doubt it because it's a Western RPG, and you do not like Western RPGs.
Or Ghosts. I haven't played nearly enough of Ghosts to even consider it.
Yeah. Well, maybe if there's a lot of cat finding missions in any of these games, like Cyberpunk, you might be like, oh yeah, dude, I love this, man. Like, this dude needs his cat to be found. Like, yeah, I love that.
Love it so much.
Give me more cat. Can I help your grandma across the street? I love that.
Shut up.
Oh,
shut up. Just shut up. What grandma? Nobody's grandmas. Anyway, Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Yeah, tight controls, tight gameplay, charming art, characters and design, a story told mostly through environment and occasionally through dialogue or narration, but also just as much through the music. It's a sad story. This is not a happy story. There's almost it's a happy ending, but it's a bittersweet ending. Which the first one was too. There was a lot of that, but it was like the first one kind of gives you like, all right, everything's fixed, and then you go dive into this one's like, oh, everything's not fixed. And here's why. And it's so good. It's so good. If you love the first one, you haven't played this, what are you doing? Go get it on Game Pass. Play it on your PC, Xbox, whatever. If you've never played them, you can play this one without playing the first one. I don't think you gain or lose really much of anything, except an additional connection to the characters. Mostly just Ori, because Ori's only the strongest carryover. Ori's kind of a bland character. Ori themselves is just this little being who is, setting things right because of the player's actions and desire to do good in the forest. But great game. Love it. Number 1 so far.
Cool. Dig it, man.
Yeah. What's your number 1, Jason?
Well, as much as I kind of feel like this is almost cheating, but for me, this year, the best game that I've played almost all the way through is The Last of Us Part 2.
I can see that considering the games that you've played.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I haven't played a ton of 2020 games, and I haven't played Ghost of Tsushima. I don't even really know what else would be in people's contention for 2020. Maybe Doom Eternal. Mm-hmm. I can't see Resident Evil 3 really supplanting anything. Maybe if you're crazy, Animal Crossing. But like to me, this is the best game that has come out this year so far, period. And I am really, I think I hold it to a higher standard because of the pedigree that Naughty Dog comes with, because of how great the first game was. But I think if you really try to separate yourself from that, I just think that you would find yourself saying, this is the best game that's come out this year. This, from a technical standpoint, from a storytelling standpoint, from a game mechanics standpoint, from just a pure fun standpoint. Like, I love the encounters. I love the little sandboxes that they drop you into and they allow you to explore and do all these things. I love that it's difficult, but not too hard. I love I think the story is great. And obviously it has its flaws. Obviously, I think that it has overstayed its welcome in certain points of this game. And I do wish that it was over at 21 and a half hours in. Part of that's due to how succinct and well paced the first game was. I think coming in at 15 hours. This one's a little long in the tooth, but all that aside, I'm really enjoying it. It's one of the only games that I'm pushing myself to beat this year because of how much I am enjoying myself playing it. And I wouldn't beat this game if I wasn't enjoying myself playing it because I don't have time to do that. And I mean, by the time I beat this game, it's gonna be the Outer Worlds I beat. I did not beat Half-Life Alyx, and then this one. That's the list of games that I even came close to beating this year. And that should tell you something because I don't have a lot of time to do this.
You do. You just, like you said, you're picky. At worst, you're picky. At best, you have high standards, and that's fine. If that's your criteria, whatever your criteria is, you have it, and you want to play games worth your time. And these are the 3 that have been the most worth your time. Not from any games or hours to dollars perspective, but just your most enjoyment. Well, it's a vague term, but you enjoy these games the most.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say any of these 3 games are worth full price. And that's not something I can say for any of the other. I mean, that's not something I can say for a lot of games on this list. So
correct. And I would second that on my list. I would pay for any of these games. Like, I didn't buy The Last of Us. I had no intention of buying The Last of Us. After the fact, that game was worth $60 at launch. I didn't pay for Ori. I used Game Pass. I would have bought that game if Game Pass wasn't a thing. I would have done that anyway because I wanted to play it. But even after the fact, that game is worth your time. Final Fantasy VII Remake, that game is worth your time and your money.
Sure.
Yep.
Well, cool. Right. Well, I think that was a great breakdown.
I do. Before we move on to Sean's question and the end of the show, what's coming out that could squeeze its way into your top 3?
For me, that I know of off the top of my head, Ghost of Tsushima and Cyberpunk 2077.
Okay.
What about you?
For me right now, it's probably just Ghost. Like, I can't think of another game coming out the next three major games, or next two major games are Cyberpunk and Avengers.
I'm trying to think if there are any launch titles that'll come out at the end of this year that could...
I'm not going to play those, though.
Yeah, no, but I understand that. But like, let's just pretend. Are there any launch titles that could... Yeah. I don't think so.
Kena Bridge of Spirits is my kind of game. It could be really, really great, or it could just be mediocre. You know, a cute game, a fun game, but nothing more than just a fun, cute game. Yeah,
I can't see that supplanting some of the monsters that are on this list, though.
For me,
I mean, I can see it being really fun. I can see it making top 3, top 5, but can you really see it being the game of the year?
Oh, I see. No, that would be a miracle.
Yeah.
Like that would have, no, that's too big an ask. Because that's it. Like I'm not looking forward to anything else coming out this year for the most part. And who knows, Nintendo might have one magic card left up their sleeve, but I sincerely, I sincerely doubt it. And yeah, I mean, Game Pass on Xbox does, I don't know. They could throw a wrench into things because I'll have it all at my fingertips. And it's gonna be weird to be able to play quote unquote next gen games immediately.
Sure, yeah.
Like I have but I haven't done that in a very long time. Technically, I played Breath of the Wild at launch, but
yeah,
it doesn't have quite the same feel.
That was kind of current gen, just Nintendo's version of it.
Right. It was fun to be on to be playing something with people around the same time frame, but that's true for any game that comes out that you enjoy. So
yeah. Totally.
So Cyberpunk, it's kind of just that last unknown variable.
I could easily see that supplanting The Last of Us just because of how hyped I am for it. But
you are very hyped for it. I hope it doesn't let you down.
It better not.
Or else.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm looking through the list of games that came out this year, and I'm just not seeing a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I'm with you. Well, Spider-Man and Miles Morales, I mean, that's going to be there, but I don't even know if I would include that as like a full
small game. That game has it's got a lot of weight, or it's got a lot to prove because it's smaller, and we've already seen Spider-Man. It's not going to be reinventing the Spider-Man game. It's just going to be, oh, cool, let's see Miles Morales. And I guarantee it's going to be fun and interesting to see, and I'll probably pick it up. Is it going to be on PS4?
I think they've been a little ambiguous about it, but I think it might be.
Like, I get it. I really do. And normally I'd be like, yeah, put it on PS5. At some point, you got to draw the line. But that game not being on PS4 seems like a mistake.
I think it's going to be.
I agree. I do think it is too. And if it's not, that's a mistake.
Yeah.
All right. So Sean, or anybody else who's listening, tell us what your game of the year so far is, or what you think your game of the year is going to be, because it's not out yet.
Do it.
Neverfreetoplay@gmail.com. That's right. Or shout out on Twitter. Game of the year was not a hashtag.
Huh, interesting. Was GOTY a hashtag?
No, that's what I was doing. GOTY is not a hashtag.
Game of the year is not either. Okay.
Nope. It's kind of dumb. So I couldn't even ask the void, like, hey, what's your game of the year so far?
Just feel like a hashtag Jeff Keighley.
Hey, Jeff Keighley and friends.
Yeah. Right.
Friends of the show.
All right, so we got listener questions.
Woo!
I mean, we have one listener question that we bumped from last week. Oddly, I mean, I don't know if it's oddly, but we did not get a question this week. But that's okay, because I think Sean knew we had this one in the chamber, so he just didn't write in. He's being lazy.
Yep.
So that's fine. We just have one. And it says, hey, fellas, thanks for answering my question for last week and making this second to last day of driving easier. Definitely gave me something to think about beyond what I had in mind when I asked about storytelling. So that was from like 2 weeks ago. And he says then, something a bit simpler this week. What are some of you guys' favorite gaming moments from your life? Well, Sean, I would contend that is not a simple question.
Not even kind of. What?
It's a hard question. You got to dig deep for these kind of things.
It's true, man.
Did you come up with any answers?
I was going to wing it like I always do.
Wing it, baby.
And I can't, but the problem is like we've already 20-something episodes, 23 episodes deep now. It's like, what have I talked about? Does it matter? Because nobody's listening. And Sean likes to hear us talk, and we always talk about the same stories over and over again because we were there for them.
Well,
and
that's the thing is I tried to come up with examples that I hadn't used yet.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, let's see. Favorite gaming moments. It's
it could be broad. I mean, it doesn't have to be you actually playing a game.
Sean was there when we waited for the Wii. That was, never done something quite so extreme just to obtain a game before. Like I hadn't even worked, and bought a game like that. Like it was to go and wait in the cold, at Florida cold, and stand in line for the Wii before it had become like crazy. We were excited for it, but the world hadn't caught on yet. And I just wanted to play Zelda. I wanted to play Zelda that night. I wanted to play it on Thanksgiving break. And so like, it's one of my favorite memories. One of my favorite
Did Sean get a Wii that night?
He did. Sean, nice. Robert, Kit, Rachel almost got one just to resell later. She didn't.
And you ended up getting one kind of like incidentally.
I did. And now you say that part, I'm like, yes, I did mention at least that part recently. Angelo, if you're listening, I have your money.
Angelo!
Let's see. There's my client. I was rereading my top 100 list that I made, and I was going over my earliest gaming memory, which was, unpacking the NES and just not knowing what this was, but being incredibly excited. And just from that moment on, I was a gamer. Games were going to be something I did as long as my parents let me. And then eventually it wasn't their decision anymore.
Yeah, it's funny. I have a kind of a similar like favorite memory on my list. So I distinctly remember playing Super Mario World with my stepdad at his brother's house. So at the time, I think he and my mom were dating. I don't even think they were engaged yet. And so that would have made his brother not even my uncle. And we were hanging out over there at his apartment. They were in college at the time. And I was playing Super Nintendo, Super Mario World. I think I was 3 or 4. And I distinctly remember these. I know for a fact I was 3 or 4 because Greg wasn't born yet. Because of the house that we lived in. I know exactly how old I was because I know we moved into the house we lived in right before my brother Greg was born, which was when I was 5. And I know it was a time before that. So I have these distinct memories of playing Super Mario World from when I was like 3 and 4 years old. And now it is insane to me that I am sitting here on the Nintendo Switch and Virtual Console playing Super Mario World with my 3-year-old son and seeing him go through that same exact progression that I went through, that I remember going through, that I remember struggling through these levels, that I remember like, oh, hey, this block has the Yoshi. Oh, hey, I can ride the Yoshi. Oh, hey, when I jump on things on the Yoshi, they disappear. And like, I see him going through these progressions, and I have distinct memories of doing this with my stepdad, and it blows my mind. Like, it's insane. It is like Inception. And that's got to be one of the coolest things that I don't even know if previous generations had the opportunity to have this experience. I think we're the first generation to have the opportunity to have this experience.
Yeah, in like the last 10 or so years, parents are finally getting to share this, at least in a more commonplace way. Because even 10 years ago, though, like, Virtual Console stuff was only just starting to become a thing.
Yeah.
Or had finally taken off, that kind of stuff. Otherwise, you were pulling out your old system, or it was some sort of emulation situation.
Well, either that, or like I remember, like my dad would kick my butt in Galaga at an arcade.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's a little bit different. But yeah, so that's got to be cool. I have a couple other things here that I'll just briefly mention. So binging games with my brother Greg is one of my favorite gaming things to do of all time. Like, he will come to town, we will buy a AAA game day one release, and we will just spend the entire night, like start like at 8:30 p.m. and go to like 5 or 6 a.m. and just binge it and just like pass it back and forth every quest or every mission. We did it with God of War, we did it with The Witcher 3. And like, it is some of my favorite gaming. I'll add to that, like I did this with The Last of Us with my brother-in-law. And I also did it with Celeste with him too. So, super fun. And lastly, the first time I ever saw or encountered the shake mechanic in the Wii version of Mario Party. So like, imagine you're holding a controller, but you have to shake up a bottle of soda and point it at your face. Real weird. And I just will never forget it, because I'm like, this is not a game mechanic that have ever had exposure to before in my life, and now all of a sudden I'm like, to try to win a mini game.
Yeah, it changed the game for at least a little bit.
Exactly. Do you have any other gaming memories you want to add here?
Oh, I mean, just playing games as a kid on a rainy day. Maybe on the weekend, maybe during summer or something. It's like windows open. No one's going to bother you. Like
nothing better.
Just a simpler time,
Totally. I mean, do you remember we would just like in the summer, we would spend pretty much every night at the other person's house. We would just alternate. Yeah. And we would just walk down to Mel's, which was probably like a quarter mile down the street, and we would just
it's a little further than that.
Okay, whatever. It was a mile down the street, and it was like $4 to rent a game for like a week, and we'd just be like, "This is what we're playing this weekend." Like this random thing that we don't know what it is. We don't know what there was no Metacritic, there was no Rotten Tomatoes for video games, there was no nothing. I mean, there's probably IGN reviews, but we both had dial up, and we just be like, "Oh, this cover art looks cool, so we're gonna rent this game for the weekend." Mm-hmm. Like, I dig that. Like, I miss that. I kind of wish I could go into games that blind.
I mean, we could. Redbox is a thing, but we're not nearby anymore. It's like, when are you going to have the time to do that with somebody?
Right. Yep. That's why it was kind of invaluable, That's why it sticks in my mind. I mean, it's just a one-of-a-kind thing that we'll never get that time back.
No, we won't. Kids.
You better listen to me.
Listen to us.
I'm telling you, your Uncle Jason here. He's telling you. Okay. Well, you sound like Tina from Bob's Burgers.
That's funny.
Did you ever watch that show?
I have, yeah.
It's a good show.
It is a good show.
Oh, anyway. Well, that was a long episode. Like, we are coming up on like a little over the 2-hour mark.
Yeah.
So I think I have to say that's all we have for you this week. You can find us at neverfreetoplay.com or patreon.com/neverfreetoplay. You can also find us on Twitter at neverfreetoplay. We hope you all have a fantastic week. We will try, but we are never free to play. Why do these guys aren't qualified? These guys didn't work for IGN. I don't care about their opinion. I want to see this Mario cake. Let me click on this Mario cake.
They only have 38 views.
As soon as I saw they had 38 views, I was like, nah. I know everything about social media, and I was like, nah. These guys are dumb. I'm so dumb. I hate them. They're terrible at what they do because they didn't work for IGN.